Chapter 55 to 56. We appeared with a pop, and for a moment my vision swam, the energy cost being slightly greater than I had expected. The wave of fatigue passes by quickly enough though, and I manage to stay on my feet. KLL, where are we? My mom asks. I consider how to answer that question. I know I can't simply tell her that I've been here before, as that wouldn't make sense. I'm not sure. I sensed a collection of energy on this planet. Not high enough to be a threat to us, at least, but also definitely not Scion in origin. I explain. There is a soft breeze, the brightly lit landscape beautiful. Kakarot has his eyes closed, but is breathing deeply. You okay, Kakarot? I ask. He nods but remains silent. I watch his eyelids flutter, and then slam shut. I suspect after however long he spent in the dark that the right sunlight is probably painful. Let's see if we can't find a place to rest for a moment, I reply, looking around. I had aimed to appear as far from the energy I had locked onto as I could, which was about half a mile at best. In my last life with all my stats, I could appear almost anywhere on a planet based on the location of a single energy source. Appearing right on top of someone is rude, as I was taught by Bulma once upon a time. Appearing on an alien world on top of someone I'm hoping to get help from would be a step in the wrong direction. I glance around, trying to get my bearings before I spot something that might help us rest a bit. Mom, can you watch over Kakarot? I ask. I'm gonna head to that small town right there, see if there is any place we can stay. Be careful, please. My mom says as she nods. I nod back, before hopping into the air. It was a quick flight over, and I didn't expect it to take much time. Of course, even the best-laid plans fall apart at the slightest interference. I was no more than halfway to the village when I felt a high-energy source heading right for me. I didn't recognize the energy signature, so I halted my journey and waited. A minute passes before a figure with a purple aura slammed to a stop a short distance in front of me. Who are you, and why have you come here? The person asks, watching me warily. My name is KLL. My mother and a family friend and I have just barely escaped with our lives after an assassination attempt. I brought us to the first planet with enough energy that I thought would be technologically advanced enough to help us heal. I explain, watching him closely. We have no technology here. We have no way to heal you, your family, or your friends. He replies, leave this planet immediately. You don't have anything that could help? I ask, shrugging. Honestly, even a bed to rest in for a night would be more than enough. We don't have anything on this planet. Leave at once, or I'll be forced to make you leave. He replies. No offense, but you're not very strong. I reply. His power level is barely over 20k at the moment. I was warned that one day a threat would arrive here. He replies, his muscles tensing. The air seems to spark momentarily before he starts to almost seem to twitch. My people have sacrificed themselves to make this possible. As he yells out the last bit, his aura seems to explode around him, doubling in size and intensity. His power level skyrockets, going higher and higher, the air around us shimmering as he powers up. I wait, letting him get it all out until after another handful of seconds he is done. Now, get off of my planet, he says as he stands up straight once more. 1.2 million? That's not bad, actually. I reply, flooding my body with energy, letting my restraints fall away. Yesterday, you would have been a threat, something for me to take seriously. As my aura comes alive around me, his eyes widen just slightly as I bring my full power to bear. But today you're just in my way. We float a dozen feet away from each other, the crackle of burning energy around us, each waiting for the other to start what was sure to be a battle to the death. I could sense a few other higher than average power levels moving in our direction, but even combined there wouldn't be much to break a sweat over. I was watching his eyes, watching the indecision boil away. With the slightest twitch of his muscles, his energy flared, rocketing him towards me. My hand was already down, a ball of energy sparking into life, ready to end his. Now, I thought, bringing my hand up, the blast of energy right on the cusp of being released. Non-ideal. We both freeze in place, his fist pulled back, my hand pointed right at his chest, the energy pulsing, seemingly alive and hungry for his life. Nail. We hear again, as a much shorter Namekian flies up from the village below us. What fool thing are you doing? Do you not sense his strength? He could kill us all, and you're up here antagonizing him. I am sorry, Elder Muri. Nail replies, lowering his power level and pulling back. Muri studies him for a moment, before turning to me. I do apologize, young one. Nail here meant only to protect our people. I hope we haven't offended you greatly. Oh, no, of course not. Muri writes. I ask. I was mainly just defending myself. Of course. Now, I couldn't help but overhear that you and your companions need healing and help. He asks. Yes, my mother, myself, and a family friend have just escaped from an attack. We just need a place to rest for a while. Before we move on, I explain. He studies me for a moment, before looking over my shoulder in the direction of my companions. Gather your friends and return here. You may stay in my home for now. Oh, thank you. I reply enthusiastically. My name is KLL. By the way, it only took a moment to return and grab my mother and kakarot, returning to the Namekian village post-haste. Mori was still waiting for us outside, speaking softly with a small group of Namekians. Seeing us land, he ushered the group away before introductions were given. Afterward, he led us to his home, which in normal Namekian fashion was nothing more than a hut, but as we were homeless, we had absolutely no room to complain. Thank you again, Mori, I say after we get settled. Think nothing of it, KLL, correct? Mori replies. Namek doesn't receive very many visitors, so it's not often we get the chance to show hospitality. After I explained the rest of the story to him, Kakarot being imprisoned and tortured, and our escape, Mori was even kind enough to send for someone that could heal Kakarot. Thank you, Kakarot says, once the healing energy had taken effect. I haven't felt this good in years.
Wow.
Mori explains to us about Namek, their history, and the most recent events. I notice immediately that he skips over any mention of Dragon Balls, even editing a few past events to exclude them. Probably for the best. In a few years, Tolls would massacre the Namekians for the Dragon Balls. Being cautious wasn't enough. I thought listening. Though I don't believe Nail would have struggled to kill him. Is he different this time around compared to my first life here? Tolls killed him, then, I think. So this leader Guru said? My mom asks. He died recently? Yes, it has been difficult, but we are bouncing back. Mori replies. We sit in silence for a moment before I finally think to ask about Nail. Nail is the strongest of our people. He has gone to great lengths to ensure our people's safety, training many hours a day. Your arrival and strength will surely push him to new heights. Not to say that he was complacent, no. Mori explains quickly. But knowing that there are children alive that are stronger than he is will push him further. Well, if he ever needs a training partner, I'm down, I reply. He is very strong. I'd gain a lot from it as well. I'll be sure to pass that along. Now, we don't have much in the way of food, but I believe the oceans and rivers have plenty of fish. You are free to hunt, as long as you don't kill for sport. Mori tells us. We agree to his demands, and he lets us settle in. He leaves shortly after to tend to some business, and we finally have a chance to talk amongst ourselves. Prince KLL, what is the plan now? Kakarot asks me. I pause at the title, feeling the nobility of it settle upon me. While I had been king once in the past, I hadn't been a part of the bloodline. Now here, I am actually in line to inherit the throne. What happened to Indivaya? I ask. I'm not sure. After Vegeta was executed, Indivaya was taken away from me. I had actually been taking care of him during the entire fiasco. I tried to defend him, but I was overwhelmed. My own father and brother, Kakarot replied, shaking his head. I don't think anyone blames you, Kakarot, I say after a moment. You're not infinitely strong. You alone stood by my father, and for that I owe you. Kakarot nods, before looking up at me from where he sat. You speak to me like you've known me for a long time. I laugh, before replying, I guess I just feel close to you already. Now, you asked what the plan was? I ask. We're going to train, and in less than 2 years, we will return to planet Vegeta. We will have our revenge, and I will take the throne. By force if necessary, but I have a feeling that I will not need to. KLL, my mom said quietly. Is that really what you want to do? Like he said, Mom. Prince. My father believed I could one day be the strongest of our people. I plan to show them exactly what that means. Planet Namek, 6 months later. Time seemed to almost pass slowly on Namek. The people were very idyllic, peaceful. The bright sunlight, the pure air, the clear skies. It's enough to make a person not want to ever leave. Of course, peace would only be temporary. Even today, the quiet of the planet was interrupted by explosions of light and sound. A blast of energy rocketed past my face, just barely dodged as I bounced backward from my attackers. The attacker on the right lunged forward, his fist slamming into my hastily raised guard, as the attacker on the left moved in for a leg sweep. My legs are caught, thrown out from under me, but I managed to get my hands under me. With a small blast of power, I launch into the air, regaining the advantage I once had. The first catches up to me, but I'm ready for him, my jab knocking the air from his stomach. I aim for an uppercut, but he's suddenly yanked back by a long green arm, pulled from harm's way, while launching themselves at me. I catch a kick with my left hand, dodge 2 follow-up attacks before a third manages to clip my side and throw me back. I spin, the air around me filling with tiny motes of blazing light that suddenly expand to the size of volleyballs. HAA! I yell as I direct them towards my foes. The one closest it caught in the blast, knocked from the sky, but the one further back manages to dodge. He catches his friend, before turning to face me. Stop. Kakarot says, breathing heavily. Combat has stopped. Enemies. Kakarot LVL 1170, 100 XP. Nail LVL 950, 800 XP. Total reward, 12900 XP. Dash 380 XP till level 6. Level up alert. Nail blinks a few times, before pulling out of Kakarot's arms and floats softly to the ground. How do you keep getting stronger? Nail asks. Last month you weren't even half the strong. It's part of my scion biology. I get stronger the harder I push. I explain. You and Kakarot are both getting stronger as well, which in turn pushes me further. I didn't have the heart to tell him that with my new level, I'd be even stronger. KLL, you said that we'd wait almost 2 years, but even now, the two of us are stronger than the rest of our race combined, Kakarot says. Why wait? I consider how best to answer that, but I am interrupted instead. There is a crackle of energy and a flash of purple light that seems to coat the entire area for a moment. High above us, a jagged crack is formed, filled with swirling energy. We watch in stunned silence as 5 Scion space pods appear from within the swirling energy, each hurtling towards the ground, crashing as the pods tend to. What is happening? Nail asks. I watch the pods for a moment, sensing the energy levels within. I don't recognize any of the signatures, but at their strength levels, I would assume they would have been in the strike forces. High above there is another crackle of energy as the jagged crack shrinks shut. Below us, the 5 pods open as the figures step out and into the open air of Namek. I am confused, very, very fucking confused. I think, studying them closely. I start to drop from the sky, Kakarot and Nail following behind me, till we all touch down a short distance from our visitors. Kakarot, who had been watching my face, suddenly asks, KLL, who are these guys? I shake my head in response, watching them take in the area around them. The 5 figures look around, tapping on their standard-issue scouters, talking into them, but seem to not receive a response. One of them reaches back into the pod behind him, tapping on the console. Captain, this is definitely Namek. The one seemingly in charge gives him a look, before tapping on his scouter once more. Then why isn't anyone responding? Maybe we should ask the locals. One response, pointing over at us. Oh. The leader says, noticing us at last. Men. Introductions. Yes, Captain. They all chorus back. Oh God fucking kill me. I whisper as they begin to dance. Recums. Bertus. Jeez. Goldo. Captain Jinyu. And together we are. They all chant, dancing around in a circle, the Jinyu force. Kakarot and I share a glance before looking back at them. Nail, who had been watching in silence, seems to have finally reached his breaking point. Pushing past us, he steps in front. Why have you come here? He asks roughly. Why are we here? Captain Jinyu asks, perhaps surprised that anyone would demand answers from him. We were called here by Lord Frisia to deliver new scouters and deal with some pesky malcontents, though I was under the assumption that most of the Namekians were dead. Our scouters are showing thousands of energy signatures. This may make finding the Dragon Balls take slightly longer than projected. What did you say? Nail stutters out, as I hear Kakarot whisper, Lord Frisia? Oh, yes, of course. Namekian, could you please point us in the direction of the Dragon Balls? Captain Jinyu asks almost nicely. I'd rather not need to massacre multiple villages to track them down. Nail stands there in an almost stunned silence before a snarl seems to rip its way out of him. Over my dead body. He roars, his aura exploding around him. He brings both hands to his chest, a flashing ball of energy forming in an instant before shoving his hands forward. Before the Jinyu force is even able to react, let alone move, the energy washes over them, turning them into dust, along with several miles of land beyond. As the energy fades, he seems to almost deflate, his breath coming in ragged huffs. Good job, Nail, I say, grabbing his attention. That's exactly what you were training for. To defend your people from those meaning to do harm. It doesn't matter, they were sent here. Someone else knows about he says before suddenly stopping. The Dragon Balls? I ask. How do you know about the Dragon Balls? He asks, his eyes taking on a glint of suspicion. Calm down, Nail. If I wanted the Dragon Balls, I wouldn't need to send for those idiots. Right? I ask. What are Dragon Balls? Kakarot asks. And why would Frisia want them? Nail glances at him, seeing the confusion on his face. You haven't told your friends? I saw no reason to know. None of us speak Namekian anyway. They are useless to us. I explain. I need to speak to Elder Muri, Nail says, before launching himself into the air. KLL? Kakarot asks. I'll explain later, I'm sorry. This situation is weird. I reply. Kakarot watches me for a moment before finally replying. Yes, my prince. Age 762, timeline 14U7. A small squat figure sits on a floating throne, drinking from a tall glass. As he watches the world outside the broken viewport, he can't help but think out loud. Where are the Xenoverse? He says, before sipping from his drink. They should have been here hours ago. 24 hours later. Kakarot had been giving me looks for the past day. The end of our conversation left a bad taste in my mouth. My last life was filled with secrets, and I already felt that I was filling this one with secrets as well. My mom had questioned us as soon as we returned, confused by the tension between us, but my explanation fell short. I could sense Nail still off with Elder Mori, but little else had changed between the Xenoverse arriving here and now. Which begs the question, what the fuck? I thought. The Xenoverse, they weren't alive in my last life. We had the strike forces, and that was all that was needed. Yet here, now, the Xenoverse show up unannounced. Thankfully, they weren't a match even for Nail, let alone myself or Kakarot. This was worrisome regardless, though. What other mysteries were filling the universe, while I was stuck here playing catch-up? I could only hope that with more training and a bit more time, I would be able to take them head-on. KLL, the Namekians are on the move, Kakarot says, pulling me from my thoughts. They are, yeah, heading this way. I reply. I see your ability to sense energy has gotten even better. One thing about Kakarot that had carried over from my previous life is that Kakarot was simply amazing. He learned so quickly, his strength and energy would skyrocket seemingly at random. He was out, training, hours after even I'd called it a night. The fact that I was still stronger than he is was based solely on my genetic advantages. Let's go see what they want, I said, making my way out the door. Muri, Nail, and a few other Namekians had arrived shortly after. I didn't sense any hostility, mainly just curiosity and a bit of caution. KLL, may we talk for a moment? Muri asked shortly after landing. Of course. What can I help you with? I ask. Muri pauses, glancing at Nail, before continuing. It's been brought to my attention that you are aware of the Dragonballs. That's right, yes, I answer. Is that what brought you to Namex? Muri asks for the Dragonballs? No, of course not. As I explained to Nail earlier, if I wanted the Dragonballs, I could have taken them on day one. I explain. I also don't speak Namekian, so they would be useless. What are Dragonballs? My mom asks, watching on. I don't answer, meeting Muri's eyes instead. You haven't told your friends? Muri asks, confusion evident. I haven't, no. They didn't need to know about them. I answer. Muri studies me closely for a moment, before looking at Kakarot and my mother. Whatever he is looking for he must have found, because he turns back to me almost immediately. I see. Do you have an explanation for the arrival of those men? He asks. I know as much as you do, I say, shrugging. I believe you, KLL. Muri answers. I also do not think you are a threat to my people. I have been cautious in the past few months, but I think you've shown that if you meant us harm, you would have done so long ago. Elder, please. Nail interrupts. It isn't safe to allow them to remain here, knowing about the Dragon Balls. Nail, please. You can sense their intentions just as well as I can, Muri says. Nail gives him a scathing look before launching into the air, flying off into the distance. I watch him go, worried that this could lead to tragedy. You need not worry, KLL, Muri says, sensing my worry. I'll speak to him soon enough. Thank you, Muri. Was there anything else you need? I ask. He hesitates for a moment before shaking his head. No, I believe that's all. The crowd behind him breaks up, heading away from the area. I watch them go in silence, before turning to face my friends. The Dragon Balls are 7 large golden spheres that, when brought together, can grant you any wish, I explain, before heading inside. Wait, what? Kakarot asks, swiftly following me. What do you mean, any wish? Immortality, money, even bringing someone back from the dead, I reply, settling on the couch. Anything you could wish for? Then why aren't we using them? My mom asks. We could do so much. Because they aren't ours to use. The Namekians are very strict on what they are used for. We need a place to live, and we can live here for a long time as long as we don't mess things up. Trying to use the Dragon Balls would end that very quickly. I explain. We could take them by force. My mother says fiercely. They couldn't kick us off the planet. I sigh, shaking my head. And that's exactly why I didn't tell you. It's disappointing that your first thought was violence. Ah, you're right. My mom replies. But we could bring Vegeta back to life. We may one day still be able to, I explain. The Namekian Dragon Balls aren't the only set. 6 months later. It had been a standard year since we had landed on planet Namek, and in that time, much had changed. My own power seemed to grow in leaps and bounds. Nail had abandoned training with me and Kakarot, spending all his time training on his own. I could sense his power level jump up every week or so. I didn't spend much time sensing his energy, but at times it was hard to ignore. I just don't get it, I thought as I dodged a blast of energy from Kakarot. I did my best to push the thoughts from my head, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I felt a tickle of worry. A little further behind that though, I felt pain, as in my distraction, I had allowed Kakarot to kick me in the back of the head. I righted myself, catching his follow-up punch with my forearm, returning several hard blows to his stomach. It was grossly unfair how quickly my energy increased, being able to heal from injuries overnight. Poor Kakarot had to actually wait to heal, which made me pull my punches a bit. "Take this," he yelled as he pulled back from, a loud whoop as he releases a blast of energy right in my face. I'm thrown back, and for a moment, I feel a towering rage fill me. Warning. Loss of control imminent. Warning. My HUD flashes with the warning, but it almost immediately fades, the smoke around me clearing away in an explosion of energy. KLL? Kakarot says, flying to me. What the hell is that? I don't know, I reply. Your energy increased by a lot for just a moment. You were glowing too, he says, studying me. Was I ask, closing my character sheet. Yeah, power up to your power strength real quick, he asks. I nod, and with a thrum of energy, my aura lights up around me. A few moments later, and I was at max power, the energy I'm putting out swirling the air around us. Still looks and feels the same to me, Kakarot says, studying me. No change. A bit over 16 I reply, before powering back down. Inside, my thoughts were in turmoil. For a moment, I was sure I nearly lost control, preparing to wreak havoc on planet Namek, the next in a long line of tragedies to befall them. Either way, I think we may need to start taking our training off of Namek. We're both getting too strong for the planet to handle our full powers. I think I should also teach you instant transmission. I really should have done that last year, I say, before dropping to the ground far below, Kakarot following behind. That's a good idea, KLL. I'd like for us to go all out, and we're both holding back now. He replies before we land on the blue grass-covered ground. I consider what to say for a moment before I turn to Kakarot. I need to explain something to you. So let me get this straight. When you said you weren't an anomaly, but the legendary Super Saiyan, you meant that you inherently have a transformation outside of our OO's form. Kakarot says, contemplating what I've told him. A transformation that every Saiyan can at least reach a type of, but for you, it sends you into a rage that will generally end up with the destruction and death of everyone around you. That's almost word for word what I said. Yes, I reply deadpan. First, how the hell could you possibly know this? Kakarot asks. Second, why the hell wouldn't you say something before now? Honestly, Kakarot, I was worried, I explain. Worried that the fear our people have for the so-called anomalies would change things. Once you know that I actually am a danger. Then why tell me now? He asks, studying me. When my power rapidly increased, I felt rage. For a moment, I feared that this was the moment I transform, bringing ruin and death to planet Namek. I reply, looking down. That's why I need to teach you instant transmission, and we need to start training off-planet. Because eventually it will happen. Eventually, I will lose control, and you will need to leave me behind to live. Kakarot was peeved at me for a few days, but he didn't let it show very much. We moved our training to a rocky moon with a very light atmosphere a few solar systems away. It took me several days of popping around, checking each planet, to find a place suitable for training. While I could breathe in space just fine, I needed a place Kakarot could survive. Once I had found it, our training commenced. As always, Kakarot picked up instant transmission after less than a week of trying, beating my own record of 9 days. I wasn't jealous, of course, just a bit miffed. Either way, with that part out of the way, we could get back to training for real. The universe was moving along without me. I needed to get things finished here and return to planet Scion. I knew that if there was one thing that would solidify my rule, it would be killing Frisia and freeing my people. His power was much greater than my own for now, though. I had a few years left before I felt this needed to be done, and by then I hoped to have Kakarot break through his limits. Until then, I needed time. Time to grow, gain strength, and become what I once was. A warrior that surpassed the gods.